Grave Encounters 2 is much, much worse than its predecessor, and it even makes me like its predecessor less. It has a much dumber premise, more annoying characters, and it does this thing where it sucks out any potential tension it could possibly have near the end of the film. That's mostly a result of them spending way too much time on the first part of the film where they just try to get the characters to the point where it would make sense for them to go to the asylum from the first film, only for them to rush through all the scares like a checklist, hitting beat for beat the kinds of scares that were in the first film without any of the tension being built up. I can't tell you what a wild experience it is to watch a sequel of the film where these scare moments that are supposed to be payoff are much, much bigger than its predecessor, and I am far less scared than I ever was in the first film. People are screaming and running, being thrown around, being chased by ghosts of patients with distorted faces, and I was bored out of my mind. I'm already a fan of found footage horror, but one thing that's really difficult to do is to give us a reason why the characters are filming so much of the story, right? The first film did this very smartly by just having them be a TV crew. It just makes sense for them to film as much as possible because they don't know what they're going to need and what they're going to use for the final product. This one tries so hard to make it make sense by having them all be film majors, right? That's why they're filming. It's for a project for school. That's meant to give them plausibility for filming so much of this, right? Well, any of that plausibility is thrown right out the window with the rest of the premise. Get this. This film is about the main character who wants to be a horror film director and is obsessed with the first Grave Encounters, which in their universe, just like in ours, was a released Hollywood horror film, because he found out that the actors playing the characters in Grave Encounters 1 are also missing, and he thinks the events in that movie were real. And he somehow convinces his friends to do a film project where they go to this real asylum and go inside so that they could see for themselves whether or not it's real. Guess what? It was real. Congrats. Now you too can lose your life in the exact same manners as the characters from the first film. And it's even worse because when all of the same kinds of things are happening to these characters as had happened in the first movie, these characters should have the context. They watched the first movie. They should know what's going on. They should know that the layout of this place changes. It's seemingly infinite within, and it doesn't want to let you go once you're inside. But they don't act like they know. They act just as surprised and confused as the characters from the first movie who didn't have context. It honestly kind of ticked me off. I kind of feel insulted by this movie. I can suspend my disbelief with the best of them, okay? I watch a lot of movies. I'm very tolerant on what I call like wonky movie logic, right? I'll just recontextualize it to make it make enough sense for me to move on to the parts that are enjoyable. This movie could not do that. There was exactly one moment where I was actually excited and thrilled, and it was when they all escaped the asylum. They went back all the way to the hotel. They were trying to leave. They were in the elevator going down in the hotel, and the doors open and they're back in the tunnels underneath the asylum. That was the only time this movie worked for me. And it's all made even worse by over-reliance on the character of Lance from the first movie, who does make a return. He's called Sean this time because apparently he was an actor portraying Lance in the fictional movie where they were fictionally trying to make a TV series, but it was real. So were they really trying to make that TV series? And that's not the case. Not only is he looking rough, but he is actually just Gollum. Like, they just wholesale took the character of Gollum from Lord of the Rings and were like, what if Lance became that? He's mostly nude, he's very pale, he's thin, he subsists mostly on rats, like live wriggling rats, which reminds me a lot of Gollum eating those live fish. He kind of talks to himself and he laughs at himself and he has this weird voice affect that he didn't have at all in the first film, and he's supposedly trying to guide the characters to where they need to go, but is also out loud musing on the fact that he's going to betray them. So far, this is my least favorite film of all of the ones we've watched for this 31 Days of October. I'm glad one of my personal favorite horror movies of all time is next, which is John Carpenter's The Thing. If you want to join in on the 31 Days of Horror fun, the list of films I'm watching this October are in my pinned videos. Until then, if you find yourself theorizing that a horror movie you saw might be real, just accept that you'll never know the truth. That's just better for everyone involved.